Hello and welcome to the Amateur Hour Podcast. This is Demigod with Amateur Hour MTG. If you like our content, give us a like and subscribe. If you're like me, your socials are literally on fire today after the Commander Rules Committee's recent ban and restricted announcement. As of September 23rd, the following cards will be banned in EDH: Dockside Extortionist, Mana Crypt, Jeweled Lotus, and Nadu Winged Wisdom. I want to go over it with a CEDH perspective and some of the input from my network and just about how this is going to affect CEDH. So first, if you don't play CEDH, this ban is earth-shattering. These are some of the most iconic cards in our decks. Financially, some of us have lost hundreds or thousands of dollars potentially. I expect there's going to be a lot of salt over the coming days about this, so just keep in mind that these are not necessarily permanent. There's always opportunities for unbannings, and that the people on the other side of those social media accounts are humans too, and they don't deserve to be mistreated. It's been almost 3 weeks since CDH's last scandal, where the owner of Top Deck GG's plan was leaked to form a CEDH rules committee to what's essentially on paper curate the CEDH tournament format for those players. That was met with a big uproar, and due to the fallout from that, TopDeck.gg has canceled all upcoming events. They have gone radio silent on social media. They've removed the statistics from EDH Top 16, and as far as I can tell, at least for now, that plan to form a CEDH rules committee has been scrapped. To put it plainly, at the height of CEDH's rise in popularity, this scandal rocked the community, and the momentum that CEDH had been experiencing on a national scale was suddenly brought to a screeching halt. So what better time for another cataclysmic CEDH shakeup? Look. Yeah, you don't care. The first thing that strikes me is that Nadu, Winged Wisdom, is the least impactful of these bans. It's a strong commander, sure, but currently in CEDH, the format is dominated by Rogsai, Rograk Silas. A low-to-the-ground deck doesn't even play Jeweled Lotus and is set to become even more dominant in the format. Decks using Hullbreaker Horror are going to be affected by the loss of Jeweled Lotus and Mana Crypt. Esper decks like Talion and Yuriko are probably going to move up in the rankings. Any deck using Thoracle just lost a lot of competition. And overall, CEDH loses access to a ton of high CMC commanders, often commander-focused decks that have diverse playlines, and this is going to have a huge impact on the diversity of the format. So let's go over some points in the explanation from the Rules Committee that I wanted to touch base on. Says the philosophy of Commander prioritizes creativity. When you take away cards that enable creativity, you reduce creativity. So let's talk about casual Commander for a second. I don't know about everyone else, but I have a Rico 2 Reflections deck and a Muldrotha the Gravetide deck. Some of these older commanders just can't come down soon enough to affect the game in time for their abilities to actually matter. But they have these really cool and unique abilities. You also can't play them again without a boost from something like a Mana Crypt or a Jeweled Lotus late game if they get removed the first time, because, they cost 6 or 7 the first time. So I think this is a huge hit to the diversity of EDH as a whole. And if the RC wanted to do what they say they do, it would be to signpost ban a piece of fast mana like Mox Diamond that is a legacy staple, is a higher barrier to entry due to it being on the reserved list, would retain its financial value, and would have a very insignificant effect on CEDH as a format. They say Commander has always had a potential for someone to get out to a fast start, but that having 3 opponents, that keeps them under control. Yeah, play interaction. But in the past few years, they've noticed that as power creep has gotten higher and higher, that players who skip that first part of the game are able to snowball their advantage into a win more easily. Again, play interaction. Stacks, maybe. And they say occasionally games like that are fine, but it shouldn't happen all the time. They're basically saying CEDH shouldn't be a thing. And they talk about mana Crypt coming down for no mana on turn 1. It's quite possible to have an explosive start where you play a talisman and another talisman or a signet or something, untapping with 5 mana on turn 2. That's not a whole lot different than playing land, Soul Ring, Signet. It's basically the same. They say that as the format becomes faster, that the detriment of having a mana Crypt on the field is less and less. So maybe just make the life total lower. Or tell wizards to scale back the power creep. And then they say Jeweled Lotus is another card that can give you 5 mana on turn 2 or 4 mana on turn 1 if you play Winota. They say that commanders can pack a significant punch nowadays, often drawing cards that make up for the one-shot mana, and defensive abilities such as Ward can't be interacted with in the early game. What's the real problem here, RC? Dockside Extortionist isn't normally quite as explosive in the game as the other two, but it can still go mana positive on turn 2 and start generating some substantial treasures after that. It is a one-shot card. It's been on the border for years, and we've shied away from acting in the past because the card has scaled well with the power level of the table, but it's a frequent contributor to the more egregious snowballing starts. I've literally never seen this card at a casual table or on any of the big YouTube channels, so I'm not sure what the problem is. They say we should also talk about the elephant in the room. We're not banning Soul Ring and have no desire to, because it's part of the identity of the format. No, that would be how that format functions, the rules. Banning Soul Ring would be fundamentally changing the identity of the format. I think you just did it. I contend with this in that Soul Ring, every time it is played, is literally called the problem. You can see this at your LGS, on the YouTubes. I would much rather have a Soul Ring off of there's a Saga most of the time. It's time to rip off the bandage and ban Soul Ring if you're going to do the rest of these things. They talk about banning Nadu. Nobody needed it. We had it under control with Rule 0. Just ban Quark instead. Krakashima is much more miserable to play against than Nadu. So my final thoughts, the RC has taken a step that I'm sure they thought was good for the format. However, they've inadvertently dealt a second blow to an already reeling CEDH community. They failed to address many of the truly problematic cards in the format, like Quark, half of Krakashima, the One Ring, and Ristic Study that warps the game so drastically it might as well be called Black Hole. If they meant to try and push the CEDH community into the arms of a newly formed CEDH rules committee, this would be the way to do it. It's starting to seem like a pretty good idea now. So post your conspiracy theories in the comments. And I'm sure that topic will reemerge in the following days, because this ban is truly debilitating to many of the most beloved decks in the CEDH format, and just absolutely wrecks the diversity of, EDH as a whole, in a way that nobody saw coming. My heart goes out to all those who lost value in their collections. It won't help, but just, if there's one takeaway from this, be proxy friendly. Be gentle on social media. Nothing is forever. If the players want to play these cards in CEDH, we'll find a way. For casual, just Rule 0 it. Say, hey guys, I have this geriatric commander. Are you cool if I play a Jeweled Lotus? And if they are, swap it in for a land.